When you step onto a U.S. Arleigh Burke class destroyer for the first time, the ship feels like stepping into something already moving without you. The deck vibrates beneath your boots. Steel passageways narrow fast. Orders echo overhead while machinery rumbles through the bulkheads. There's no quiet moment to take it in, and a new sailor gets no buffer. Within hours, you're expected to stand watch, learn the ship, and keep up with a crew that doesn't slow down for new faces. The first 48 hours decide whether you adapt or fall behind. Arrival and first impressions. When a new sailor boards an Arleigh Burke class destroyer, one of the U.S. Navy's most capable and numerous guided missile ships, the first impressions are immediate, visceral, and unforgettable. These steel giants stretch over 500 feet and operate with a tight crew of roughly 303 to 359 officers and enlisted personnel, depending on configuration. From the moment you step onto the deck, it's clear that this is no ordinary workplace. The destroyer is a high-tempo, multi-mission warship honed for anti-air, anti-surface, and anti-submarine warfare. Unlike larger ships where space and roles can feel more segmented, on a destroyer, every sailor is immediately part of the ship's operations. But before diving into the first impressions that a sailor gets on a U.S. destroyer, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us for more insights into the U.S. Navy vessels, like the destroyer, and how sailors experience life at sea. Before a sailor even steps into a destroyer, the first impressions begin. Sailors can feel the brass and salt air, the slick sheen of the hull, and the concentrated energy of the crew. Once aboard, the corridors are a maze of passageways, steel ladders, and bulkheads. As the newcomer navigates towards the berthing area or their division's workspace, they'll quickly grasp how close-quartered life really is. Sailors usually describe destroyer berthing and workspaces as tight but efficient. There's no personal space, and the focus for everyone is the mission. The rhythmic hum of generators, the occasional clank of equipment, and the constant movement above and below deck show that the ship never rests. Within hours, new sailors will report aboard, check in through administrative processing, and be assigned to their division and berthing, which are the shared sleeping spaces. Destroyer berths are tight and crowded, although they are way smaller than carrier quarters. Everyone sleeps in racks and shares common spaces on a destroyer, and they have only a few minutes to get to know their coworkers. Within the first 48 hours, the new sailors go through an orientation process. Orientation for new sailors. Aboard an Arleigh Burke class destroyer, the first 48 hours aren't just about finding your rack and learning when the mess deck is. As soon as those sets of orders are submitted and your name is logged in, the command sponsor and indoctrination program kicks into gear. This formal Navy program exists in every command and is designed to make the often overwhelming process of joining a new ship feel structured and supported instead of chaotic and isolating. It helps the new sailor adapt to their new working and living environment, connect with others on the ship, and set themselves up for success. Before you even set foot on the destroyer, a sponsor or mentor who is usually a more experienced sailor already stationed there will reach out. The sponsor is your first point of contact, a resource for questions about the ship's culture, expectations, and local procedures. They can provide information about where to go, travel tips, and welcome you on board. Upon arrival, you're ushered into a series of administrative processing steps that feel bureaucratic and formative at the same time. Your service record, emergency contact data, medical forms, pay information, and other paperwork will be verified and recorded. It's here that you start feeling more like a sailor. The uniforms are checked, codes are explained, and schedules laid out. Commands are required to ensure new sailors complete these steps quickly, so that they can rapidly begin contributing to the ship's mission. Once the in-processing wraps up, the orientation goes from paperwork to practical safety and familiarization briefs. These are essential survival skills. You learn how to respond in emergencies, where your muster stations are, how to use life-saving gear, and how watches work aboard a destroyer that literally sleeps. The compartment walls aboard a destroyer are close to each other, and the layout is complicated, so every sailor must know their way around. At the same time, you will also be introduced to your division. Your division is the team you'll stand watch with, train with, and learn from every day. Chief Petty Officers and Petty Officers introduce you to daily routines, explain how qualifications and personal qualification standards work, and start the real on-the-job orientation that continues long after the first 48 hours. By the end of your first full day, you would have been at the center of forms and briefings. The destroyer might still be unfamiliar, but it starts to feel like a place where you can belong and continue. After the brief orientation, it's time for the first full day aboard a destroyer. By the time orientation ends, you've been given names, procedures, safety rules, and expectations. But none of it has truly tested you yet. You've learned how the ship works on paper, but you haven't experienced what it feels like. So, what does a full day actually feel like on a U.S. destroyer from the moment a new sailor wakes up? First full day aboard. Your first full day aboard an Arleigh Burke class destroyer begins before the sun does. Not because you chose to wake up early, but because the ship's watch schedule doesn't sleep. On a warship that operates 24/7, every sailor is assigned one of the many rotating watches to keep the ship running. These include navigational lookouts, engineering consoles, bridge duties, communications, and more, all essential pieces in a machine that never stops. This watch system, built to ensure constant operation, is what dictates when the sailors get up, sleep, stand duty, and finally find sleep between tasks. In shared berthing spaces, which are racks lined up close together and sailors tucked tightly in, the wake-up call comes as fellow crew members head out to their posts. Even if they are groggy, they have to become alert within moments, roll out of their rack, and quickly get breakfast. The mess deck is already buzzing with activity as culinary specialists prepare meals for the watchstanders and those off watch. Meals are served in shifts, timed to fit around the ship's operations. The slots for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and mid-rats ensure no one goes too long without nourishment, regardless of their duty. After eating, you march past your berthing area into the heart of daily life. For sailors new to the ship, this means jumping into work and training right away. They can be assigned to cleaning stations and take part in general maintenance, drills, and safety briefings that ensure they carry out their tasks safely at sea. The ship's public address system will call you to various tasks, perhaps checking gear, assisting with equipment upkeep, or standing a 4-hour watch in a critical space. The design of destroyer life combines structural duties with learning. As you stand watch, you learn at the same time. By midday, you've eaten again, rotated through duties, and begun to feel the rhythms of the destroyer. Once it's night, there's another routine on the U.S. destroyer, but it's not so easy to sleep as a new sailor on board. After a day, sailors have to deal with their first night aboard a destroyer. But before we explore that, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more latest news and insider scoops about the U.S. Navy. First night aboard. When night falls on a U.S. Navy Arleigh Burke class destroyer, the ship doesn't become quiet. For a new sailor experiencing their first night aboard, the concept of nighttime feels very different from what they knew ashore. The destroyer's watches never stop. Every hour of every day must be covered to ensure the ship is safe, navigable, and mission-ready. Even while some crewmates sleep, others stand night watches in spaces like the bridge, engineering, or communications. In the shared berthing areas, the racks are stacked close together and sleep becomes too precious. Many sailors have to deal with fragmented sleep instead of passing out for a couple of hours. It feels like trying to rest inside a constantly running industrial workplace, where the engines, ventilation, piping, and fellow crewmates on their schedules create constant background noise. For many in the destroyer surface fleet, uninterrupted sleep is rare. In fact, most Navy personnel get far less than the recommended 7 hours of sleep per night, with many logging 5 hours or fewer while underway, even long after the first night aboard. Because the watches rotate based on operational needs and not a fixed bedtime, new sailors might find themselves waking multiple times, called to stand their next watch, assist with maintenance, or respond to drills or announcements. Even outside of formal duties at night, crew members might be preparing equipment, cleaning, performing maintenance, or training throughout the night. There's hardly ever a point when the ship is truly quiet. Although it can be physically and mentally tiring at first, many sailors adapt over time as they learn how to catch rest between watches and duties. Although the destroyer isn't as massive as an aircraft carrier, each person's role and workload matter more quickly. Even after surviving the first night, the challenges aren't over. On a destroyer, every watch and task matters, and the ship never pauses for a new sailor to catch up. As a newcomer on a destroyer, how do they keep up with the ship's relentless tempo and stay ready for their role? Small ship and big roles. When a new sailor climbs aboard an Arleigh Burke class destroyer, they step into a world where everybody matters, and that reality becomes clear almost immediately. Unlike an aircraft carrier with thousands of crew members, a modern U.S. destroyer typically sails with about 300 to 380 officers and enlisted personnel, depending on its variant and mission needs. This relatively small crew size means the ship runs lean, and there's no room for spectators. Everyone aboard has a defined job that directly supports the vessel's operations. On a destroyer, everyone, even the new sailors, is part of what makes it worse. From the bridge to engineering, weapon systems to communications, and even logistics and supply, each sailor's role fills a critical piece of the machine. A commanding officer aboard USS Thomas Hudner had once said, "A ship needs lookouts, people to do laundry, people to do maintenance on weapons systems and damage control systems, and to stand watches. I cannot do my job if they aren't doing theirs." Because the crew is so compact, everyone wears multiple hats and contributes early in their tour. New sailors might find themselves already on watch rotation, assisting in maintenance, standing fire watch, or learning to operate complex equipment almost from day one. So they have to learn fast and keep up. Shipboard tasks require close cooperation and depend on each person pulling their weight, whether during routine patrols or high-tempo operations. On a destroyer, your presence and performance are felt immediately. But there's one problem new sailors have to handle, and that's the limited personal space. Limited personal space. When you step aboard an Arleigh Burke class destroyer, you quickly realize that personal space is almost a luxury you left ashore. With a crew of about 300 to 380 sailors packed into a ship about 500 feet long, the living conditions are tight and highly communal, especially for junior enlisted personnel. In shared berthing compartments, racks, which are Navy speak for bunks, are often stacked 3 high and squeezed into a space far smaller than a typical bedroom. These spaces have very narrow aisles between them. These rooms are more like crowded dorms than private rooms, filled with the sounds of nearby crewmates brushing teeth, chatting or adjusting their sleeping gear, and personal lockers for gear jammed into every available corner. Privacy is minimal, and the closest thing to it is often a thin bulkhead between the racks and the head or toilet. Beyond sleeping quarters, the destroyer's compact design means that almost every space serves multiple purposes, and many sailors find themselves in proximity to others throughout the day. You'll eat meals shoulder to shoulder with your division in the mess deck, join formations with your shipmates before heading to work centers, and stand several duties throughout your first 48 hours that blur the lines between personal time and duty. There's little chance to be alone except in very brief moments between watches or tasks. Even when you're off duty, the ship's rhythm, like engines humming, alarms testing, or announcements over the PA, ensures you're never alone. Living in these tight quarters means that you need to adjust physically and mentally as a new sailor. But here's the twist. The cramped racks, constant hum of machinery, and blurring of personal time is only the surface. The real challenge isn't the tight space itself, but the way your body and mind respond to the fast-paced rhythm of the ship. For many new sailors, the hardest part is adapting to life on a destroyer. Physical and mental adjustment. The first 48 hours aboard a U.S. Navy destroyer led to a physical and mental recalibration. From the moment you enter the tight confines of an Arleigh Burke class destroyer, your body and mind will adapt to a rhythm that's different from life ashore. The ship's rotating watch schedule and non-stop operational tempo mean you quickly find yourself juggling unfamiliar tasks, tight sleeping quarters, shifting duties, and new expectations. The pace at which this happens can feel very overwhelming for new sailors. Sleep, especially, becomes a precious and elusive resource. For new sailors, getting uninterrupted, adequate sleep while standing watch on destroyers is difficult, even when schedules aim to align with the body's internal clock. Sailors often sleep in short fragments between watches and get less than the sleep they should. That's because all the operational needs and watch operations interrupt their regular rest patterns. In those early hours and nights, new sailors may find themselves wide awake with adrenaline, trying to catch sleep in shared berthing spaces while others prepare for their next watch or carry out routine tasks. The humming of engines, the PA announcements, and the bustle of life aboard keep the environment active. Sleep doesn't feel like a natural nightly event, but like short intervals squeezed between responsibilities. At the same time, your mind is processing a flood of new information, like procedures, equipment, duty requirements, and expectations from supervisors. Every individual on a destroyer needs to pull their weight, but life on a destroyer as a new sailor isn't all work and fast-paced routines. There are also different kinds of amenities that sailors can take advantage of, and once they get used to life on a destroyer, they can figure out how to get some free time. Using different amenities. Life aboard a U.S. Navy destroyer isn't all watches and duty stations. New sailors can also unwind, stay connected, and keep their body and mind sharp using the amenities and recreational spaces. Because space aboard an Arleigh Burke class destroyer is limited, these amenities are creative and efficient, designed to make the most of every square foot while supporting morale and resilience. One of the most talked about additions in recent years is the USO-style onboard lounge tailored for destroyers. These compact spaces, outfitted with comfortable seating, entertainment systems, games, snacks, and Wi-Fi access, give sailors a sense of comfort and normalcy. Whether it's laughing with shipmates over a movie or catching up on schoolwork or messages from home, these lounges have quickly become a valued respite from shipboard routines, helping sailors recharge and reconnect even while underway. Fitness is another key outlet. Destroyers typically include a small gym area with basic equipment like treadmills, stationary bikes, free weights, and other gear configured for shipboard life. Crew members often also improvise workouts topside or in open spaces when conditions and safety allow. And many commands integrate organized physical training led by unit fitness coordinators. Underlying all of this is the Navy's Afloat Recreation Program, which empowers units to run recreational events, competitions, and social activities tailored to their crew's interests. From command trivia contests and movie nights to informal gatherings, this program ensures that even in tight quarters, there's room for connection, fun, and mental refreshment amid the demands of life at sea. The first 48 hours aboard a U.S. Navy destroyer don't ease you in. They compress sleep, space, responsibility, and learning into a non-stop cycle that tests how quickly you can adapt. From rotating watches and tight berthing to constant noise and immediate accountability, a destroyer makes one thing clear early. You matter, and the ship depends on you. The real question, can you handle the first 48 hours on a U.S. destroyer? Let us know in the comments. For more first-hand looks into life aboard U.S. Navy ships, subscribe and hit the bell. We'll see you in the next video.